welcome to the Villa Pride Down Under podcast. My name is Tess. Today we have Ryno with us as Spud is not available to join us, and so we're doing it alone today, which is a little bit unusual. Normally we have Spud is the hostess with the mostest, and so he can't be with us, and he will be with us for the next podcast, which we'll do probably over the weekend. What we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about the Bayern Munich victory. Awesome victory for those of you who can't see me on Spotify, like I'm pumping fists and everything. And we'll also talk about that sort of mellowed down bit of the Man United draw at Villa Park. And then we've got the John Duran brand new contract to talk about briefly, alongside some minutes in the tank for Tyrone Mings and for Boubacar Kamara. Looking forward to him coming back. Ryno, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, mate. And I think you summed it up perfectly there. And I reckon it's been quite a topsy-turvy couple of weeks, hasn't it, being a Villa fan? Like a lot of expectations for obviously Ipswich, then obviously the big Bayern Munich game, and then a bit of a disappointing result really against United. So not going well though, mate. And I'm looking forward to getting into this stuff.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind couple of weeks, I think, for us, especially out here in Australia. We were watching the game at 5 o'clock in the morning for the Bayern Munich victory. What were your thoughts going into the game? Just before, when you saw the lineup, what were you thinking? What were your thoughts about how we set up and how we played?
Oh, for me, just, taking it back even one step is just like a special night for us, isn't it? We've spoken about like Champions League, a team like Bayern Munich, a huge European giant at Villa Park, and us lining up against them. And yeah, I was just, like you say, super excited, super nervous, because obviously they'd had a big win in the previous round and put a few goals past someone. Yeah. So I just obviously didn't want us to be on the end of that. And, you look at their team is full of superstar attackers. For us, not too many surprises for me for the starting lineup. This is probably what I expected, given, the injuries, and we didn't have Matty Cash back at that point. So, we sort of lined up the way I thought we would. But, yeah, just a sensational night. And for me, one of the most pleasing things, and this sounds silly after winning the game, but is the clean sheet. Like, we just haven't been able to nail a clean sheet for so long. And then to come up against Bayern Munich and their attack, you look at the team, Kane, Gnabry, Olise, and you got Sane, Musiala coming on. I just think it was just a really, really brilliant defensive performance and a goalkeeping performance. So that was probably the most pleasing thing for me, but obviously the goal as well. But I'll let you talk about the goal, mate, because you text our group chat as John just before John Duran come on and said he's going to score a screamer from 20 yards, I think your words were, and you weren't far wrong, really.
No, I thought we needed something different against, we did have the ball in the back of net, didn't we, already?
Yeah.
With Pau Torres, and that goal was sort of disallowed by VAR for an offside. I think Jacob Ramsey was offside when the initial play started. I felt like a lot of play had happened, by the way, after that, so that the goal should have been allowed, but who am I to say? But yeah, like I thought the game needed something a bit different, and I felt like we were getting at Bayern. I thought we were playing really, really well against them. We were matching them up. They've got big superstars for a club who are consistently in the running to win the Champions League and win their domestic league. And I thought we were doing really well, but I felt like we just needed something just a little bit different. And I was sitting there thinking, of the Ian Matsons, and I was thinking John Duran. And I was like, if John Duran comes on, like I bet you any money, like he's going to score from 20 yards. And then I saw him warming up or something along those lines. And I sent a group message, didn't I?
Yeah.
And I said, 20-yard screamer incoming.
That's it.
And by the time I put the phone down, he's been on the pitch and scored a worldie again. Against a really
cracking goal, though.
Oh, it was, and it got the fans off their feet. The noise actually for when we were watching the game here, I was watching the game here on one of the TV channels here, which shows the game, but you couldn't really get a sort of the atmosphere at Villa Park. And it was only when my brother sent me a video where they had been watching it on TNT, and you could hear just the noise from Villa Park was just immense. Like I watched it back, and I found a place who shares movies online, and saw the game there. So I managed to share the game and watch it using TNT, and the noise was electric. It just like I had goosebumps and everything. It was just electric. But good on John Duran, because he's come on in a number of games and won the game for us, and he seems to be putting the work in. As soon as he gets on the pitch, he wants to be involved. He wants to be involved in everything. And that ball from Pau Torres, though, and he let it run and just cracked it. And I was just like, no way. And like when I just seen it go past the keeper, I was like, that has to be, it's a goal. Amazing.
Yeah,
It was an amazing moment for me. Amazing moment for the Villa fans who were there.
The interesting thing for me as well, I think in the post-match interviews, they were sort of saying, I can't remember who was talking about it, but they were saying in the week they'd done a bit of homework on Manuel Neuer, and he is the, obviously they call him the original sweeper keeper. And Unai Emery had highlighted that, yes, he's going to come off his line quickly. If the ball's coming through, expect him to be rushing off his line. And I can't remember who the player was who was interviewing at the end. And they said, that would have definitely been in John Duran's. I think it might have been Emi Martinez, actually. And he said, we worked on it all week. And it was just an instinct finish. But that ball through from Pau Torres is that's a trademark from him, isn't it? And just like I say, we've covered off on it before. And the way he just picks the ball up in the back half for us, carries it forward and just picks passes like that. When you've got players like Duran and Watkins who can just run onto that stuff, and Morgan Rogers as well, it's a lethal weapon to have. But that finish is a special goal. Like for a special night like that for Villa, I'm so glad it was a goal of something of that quality that won the game for. Like just an unbelievable finish.
And there were other things that happened in that game as well. We saw Emi Martinez, and you talk about people like Diego Carlos, big game players, aren't they? They just seem to turn up with those big games and perform really, really well. Thoughts on Emi Martinez's performance and those world-class saves that he just keeps performing for us?
Well, he's the best in the world. And even, the week before against Ipswich, there was a couple in that game. And he's, the one for Delap, but he just stretches his leg out. And I feel like he's hit a real red hot patch at the minute with some of the saves he's pulling off, even, in the United game coming up. And for me, you're right. It was pleasing to see Carlos have a strong game. He's had a couple of poor outings for Villa leading up to that, and obviously drawn a little bit of criticism. Not unfair for me. I don't think he's been that good, and he's been quite sloppy. But I think the Bayern game, he really stepped up, and the Man United game as well. Obviously, we lost Konza quite early, which we'll get on to, but I think that's a good sign for us that he's starting to string together a little bit of form and probably a little bit of confidence back into him. So really pleasing.
And yet again, we had Yuri Tillemans. He just, how much of a fanboy I was of Dougie Luiz playing for us, and I thought he was really good at controlling games and allowing our attacking players to go and attack. But Yuri Tillemans at the moment is he unplayable at the moment, isn't he? He's that banging form.
Sensational. Has your heart mended, Tes? Is that Dougie hole closed up with a bit of Tillemans in there, or how are you feeling?
Yeah, like the name's morphing. So like, Dougie and Yuri, they're sort of morphing together now, and it's just going to end up being the Yuri going forward at the moment, I think.
You're right, though. He's probably been our best player, hasn't he? And playing a lot of minutes, and he's sort of turning into the player that we thought we were getting from Leicester. He's always been quite a lot of hype with Yuri Tillemans, and when he was at Leicester, was obviously linked to a lot of big clubs, and for whatever reason, never worked out. But we got him on a free transfer, and that is looking like a brilliant bit of business, isn't it?
It's a fantastic piece of business. And to be honest, I wasn't sure because I'd never really watched Yuri Tillemans play, even when he was at Leicester, and even during that time where they were champions of the Premier League. He came after that, sorry, didn't he? He went after the champions when they were Premier League.
I think he won the league.
I didn't really watch him.
Oh, no, sorry. No, he won the cup. He won the FA Cup with Leicester. I don't think he was there when they won the league, correct?
Yeah. So I hadn't really watched him before. I knew he was a good player, and I knew he was an international player for Belgium. I just hadn't really studied or watched him. But when he came to Villa, it was a free transfer, and we were thinking coming in to maybe make up numbers or just contribute when we've got injuries, etc. Took a long time for him to get his first starts, didn't it? Like it took a while for him to
Yeah.
get going and playing, and I think part of that was the Emery way, in which Emery tries to get players to fit the structure on how he wants the team to play, and then if they can adapt, then they start playing and they get their chances. And I think he did that, and now we're just seeing the fruits. This is the second full season for him,
Mm.
and we are starting to see how much of a top player Yuri Tillemans is, and also I think he's one of the sort of people in the team that can be a captain in the team as well, a
Yeah.
leader. I'm just seeing that from him. So congratulations to the boys against Bayern. I mean, that was a victory that I will never ever forget, and I've watched it 3 times back now because it was such a great one. But of course, we have to move on and calm down a little bit. Big game back in the Premier League. Fancy our chances against Manchester United, who, in all fairness, shouldn't have had Bruno Fernandes, and we don't really have much luck against Man United, do we?
No.
Normally Fernandes fouls one of our players and they get a penalty or something along those lines. What were your thoughts on the Man United draw?
First of all, I was pleasantly surprised to see Matty Cash back. I didn't think I'd see him starting games until after the international break. I thought they might just sort of just keep him, ticking along, training, maybe get some minutes or, behind closed door games done in the international break. But pleasing to see him back. Obviously, I think, he looked a bit rusty, but I think everyone did. And it just seemed like a bit of a European hangover to me, a massive result against Bayern.
Yeah,
And
same
then, but
here.
Man United, it's one of them fixtures, isn't it? And I think Spud said it in the off season, in the preseason stuff, that he was like, last season we were at our best, they were probably at their worst, and they still managed to beat us twice. That kind of tells you the history, doesn't it? We've had so many heartbreaks against them, but again, another clean sheet, so that's 2 in a row. We couldn't buy one there for a while, so that is pleasing.
Did we show them too much respect in that game?
100%. And we just look very disjointed. And for me, one of the disappointing things is looking at the stats is, one shot on target, and just not testing Onana enough. And that defense, obviously going into the game, there was some big selection calls by Ten Hag to start with Maguire and Johnny Evans as a centre-back pairing. And I watched Spud and Paddy for the Liverpool McGrath team sheet tantrum. Those boys did a great job, and they were sort of breaking it down, and both were, obviously pointing out that that's an area where we should be attacking, especially with the pace of Watkins and Rodgers. But I feel like we were just very disjointed, and just one of those days we were just off the pace, really. And losing Konza early obviously changes it a little bit as well. So Carlos came in. I thought he did a great job. But losing Konza, so soon to a hammy is not great. But that sort of makes it a bit disjointed. And then obviously Onana was injured, Ramsey was out, so obviously Philogene came in, Barkley. So there's a few changes, so you can understand why it was disjointed. But I think after such a good win at home against Bayern Munich, and then Man United being as poor as they've been, it's definitely a missed opportunity for me for 3 points.
I thought we would have come out with a bit more energy, considering there were a couple of changes. Of course, the Konza injury made a bit of a difference, and it was actually good to see that he was going to get to play centre back again, because you can really rely on him in that position. Interesting that Matty Cash came back in to start. I thought he's been out for a while. Maybe he would come on maybe in the second half or something like that, and just have some minutes to get back into full fitness. But fair play, he started the game. Carlos came on and did okay. I just felt like watching the game, I felt like we weren't really going hard enough at Man United. They're a team who don't have the best confidence. I think Spurs had just beaten them recently as well, and they were doing average sort of in Europe as well. I think would be. I think they got rest. I think Maguire scored a last minute, didn't he, or something like that?
Yeah.
So I thought we could have gone at them, and then I saw Maguire and Evans at centre back in the lineup. I was like, oh, this is 3 points easy. Like it's got to be
Mm.
3 points here. And yeah, maybe my expectations were a bit too much. Boys were a bit tired after playing the Bayern game, but you had Ross Barkley in there, who should have had a lot more energy. You understand if Ollie's a bit tired and off the pace a little bit because he just runs the whole time he's on the
Yeah.
pitch. But I thought this would have been a game to start John Duran perhaps and give Ollie a break, because I think when you're watching John Duran and he comes on, he just seems to have these snapshots from he'll get the ball somewhere and he'll try something, or he'll try to do a 1-2 with someone and get into position, and then he'll just try and crack the ball from anywhere outside the box or around the box. And I think this is a game that we needed to start shooting at the goalkeeper and trying to force them into saves, and I don't think we quite did that in this
No.
game.
I agree. And I think for me as well, just watching the games in recent weeks, I'd like to see us mix it up a little bit as well. I feel like we try and play, we play some really nice stuff in patches, the interplay between Rodgers, Watkins, Tielemans, all great footballers. But sometimes I feel like we should be looking to get the ball out wide to Luca Dean, make space for him and get some crosses in the box. I know that's comes away from the nice attacking, pretty football, keeping the ball. But we've got someone like John Duran, Ollie Watkins, even Morgan Rodgers. These boys are big units. And I just feel like in the air, they're going to cause a lot of defenders a lot of problems. And I think with who we've got out wide, Luca Dean is a brilliant crosser of the ball. I think we've got to make use of that weapon a bit more and mix it up a little bit and sort of, try and change it up a bit. I feel like we're trying a little bit too much to pass through teams. And, if you've got a team like Man United who just had bodies behind the ball, didn't they? I think,
Just
and they would have been more than happy to take the draw, I think, and get out of Villa Park with a point. And I just feel like maybe mixing it up. Obviously, Leon Bailey struggled the last few weeks, hasn't he? And just hasn't been. He just hasn't been fit, as he is something. He's carrying something. And I think he's, and he's the only really out and out winger that we've got that I fancy to take on a fullback. Jadon, obviously Philogene is playing a couple of games now, but it's going to take him a little time to settle. And he's probably got that in his locker, taking people on. But at the moment, for me, without Bailey, we seem really narrow, and I just like to see a bit more width and a few more crosses into the box and making use of Luca Dean and obviously Ian Matson when he comes on.
I noticed that Bailey hasn't been very. I don't think he's fit. I don't know we don't know what the issue is, but I just don't think he's fit in terms of enough to play. Now I think Emery mentioned a couple of games ago that he was feeling unwell or something like that, but he looks off the pace. He doesn't look like he can run past players at the moment. So I don't know whether there's like a little niggling injury that he's got there, or he's just been extra cautious. And it's funny because you notice that Emery's actually bringing Bailey on and making him play rather than handing over to one, say Philogene, for example, if he's available, because he wants to go for that more experience than just throwing the young lads in. But even against Man United, I felt like it was a good game and a good opportunity for someone like Philogene. He tends to run back as well and defend a bit better than what Bailey does, doesn't he? Like he seems to have that sort of wide player nailed down, and probably learned that from when he was playing in the Championship.
I agree. And I think that's one thing that he's really shined with at the moment. Probably not the end of the pitch we want him shining, but it's definitely a positive that he's, like you say, willing to track back and help the full back out. And, he's growing, I think, Jadon Philogene into the games. And against United, probably... it's a bit harsh to say he should have won it at the death there. It's a great block, but he hits one with his left foot, and Jesus, like, for all money, that's going in. Dalot's just in the right place, the right time. But I think these minutes for Philogene is really good for his confidence, and playing against Bayern Munich, Man United, like he's getting these games now, which is why he came back to Villa Park. It's probably how Unai Emery convinced him, these big games are coming up and you're going to be a part of it. And I just think, if Leon Bailey isn't fit, let's give these guys a run. And, we've seen Caden Young on the bench. I wouldn't mind seeing him, if we've got a lead, maybe bring him on, 5-10 minutes to go and see what he can do when teams are tired as well. There is options there, but we are starting to get a little bit thin on the ground. Are you worried, mate, with the injuries? Like Konza's the latest, isn't he?
Yeah, have they been hammies as well? I just wonder. I just keep
Yeah.
hearing hamstring injuries, and I'm just like, what's going on here? Konza, another one, as we discussed a little bit earlier, but very briefly, that he's going to be out now for some weeks, probably the whole of the international break, which is
Yeah.
sort of recovery period. But we don't know how soon after that period he's going to be coming back. So injuries are worrying a little bit because we look thin again all of a sudden. You have
Yeah.
two or three injuries, and then you start looking thin. You Onana, Onana for the Man United game. So who's
Yeah.
that person to replace if Barkley got injured or Tielemans got injured or something like no John McGinn.
Ramsey as well.
Ramsey. So you start to look thin all of a sudden. I guess on the positive note, you can say, well, you know what, you've got Uber coming back, and you've got Tyrone Mings is training. They've both played 45 minutes. Nice segue into talking about Tyrone Mings. And Bouba. They both. I watched the 45 minutes that they played in the under-21s. I think it was against Newcastle.
Yep.
It was good to see them out there getting some minutes and running around and playing some football again after those horrific injuries that they've had.
So I think Mings has been out for about 14 months, and then Kamara be like 8 or 9 months. So that they've missed big chunks of football, and two vital players for us, weren't they, before they got injured? And I look at the way we've started this season defensively, and I just think if we had Mings in there, or Kamara protecting that back four, they're very important for us in the defensive set and the defensive unit. But to see him getting back and getting some minutes is really pleasing. 45 minutes and then subbed off, which is good. Obviously, you'd probably think Kamara would be closer to coming back, but who knows? Just because Mings has been out for 14 months, but you see clips of him at Villa Park. Obviously, he looks in great nick as always. So I'm looking forward to seeing those guys return. And competition for places is going to be healthy. That central midfield role, Onana, Tielemans, Barkley, Kamara, that's 4 very, very strong players in there. And we're going to need them. We've got these games are coming up thick and fast. After, we've got another international break now. Yeah. And we're into bloody league games, Champions League, League Cup games, and then before you know it, it's going to be the Christmas period in January. You know what I mean? I don't want to speak too soon, but it comes around quick, and then games are thick and fast. So that's pleasing to see those two coming back in and getting minutes. But I agree. In one of our earlier pods a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't too worried about the hamstring injuries, but now we've had another one. I am starting to worry a little bit, and Konza as well. Like you've been a big advocate for him starting centre back, Tess. You've always said that's his strongest position, and he is so important for us, isn't he, around the group? And I think you can see his leadership qualities have grown a bit as well, with Mings not being there, him stepping up. So I'm waiting to see. Hopefully it's not a bad one, and hopefully we can get some of these players back. I'm not sure about Ramsey, McGinn, and Onana. Any news? Do you know, mate? How long are they out for?
The last news I saw was McGinn was giving an interview somewhere, and apparently he got told off by Emery for playing crap in the Wolves game. And he told him, if you play like that again, you're out.
No prisoners.
Like, McGinn, I love McGinn because he's just so honest. Like, he's one of those players that wears his heart on his sleeve. And I saw that and I just giggled the whole time. We don't know when McGinn will be back. I'd imagine it didn't look too serious, but I'd imagine hopefully a few weeks. Ramsey, really don't know. Emery doesn't tell us much about the injuries, does he? He just says, they've got a little bit of injury, but that's it. He doesn't really go too deep into it.
Yeah, so maybe the international break has come at the right time for us in a way where we can probably, we started the season off looking really good attacking, but really shaky defensively. But then, last couple of games we've probably switched and reverted a little bit. So I think it's probably a good time for us, to just get back on the training pitch, try and get some bodies back. Like you say, I agree with you, mate, as well. The bench, when I was looking against Man United, we were looking very thin again, weren't we? There was obviously like Sil Swinkles was on there, Caden Young. There's a couple of Lamar Bogard was on there. So, you're already started dipping into the youth team players again. But not a massive fan of the international breaks, obviously. Wales, not up to much usually, but probably I think it's probably come at the right time for us, for me anyway.
Yeah. It's all right. England won't be up to much without Konza in there anyway. Just on the Tyrone Mings, and we were talking about Boubacar Kamara. Realistically, we're not talking about playing anytime soon. No. Really, in the first team or being selected. I was thinking maybe we're talking about next year, January, February, time, for them to start integrating back into, I guess, into the playing squad where they're going to be available for selection. There might be a conundrum, though, in terms of, just imagine we get Tyrone Mings back, and I'd imagine Villa Park's going to go absolutely bonkers when he gets to get his foot on the pitch again. But what happens here, like in terms of the way we set up? So Tyrone's obviously going to have to come back. He's going to have to earn his place. But what does it look like? What does it look like for you in terms of how we line up with? We've got Matty Cash, and we've got Ezri Konsa, we've got Pau Torres, Tyrone Mings, and we've got Diego Carlos, Maatsen, and obviously Luca Dina. How do you vision the first team looking, especially from a defensive point of view?
For me, it's quite telling in the summer and the way Carlos has started that I think he was on the outer. I think a move obviously didn't materialize for him for whatever reason, whether we didn't have a replacement or whatever. So, Mings has got to come back in. For me, the strongest pair in there is Konsa and Torres, isn't it? And it's their shirts to lose for me. Diego Carlos has come into a little bit of form, and I'd be more than happy to see him play some games and pick up some form. But I do think if Matty Cash is fit, I think he starts at right back. Konsa, Torres, and I think it's similar to what you described Yuri Tielemans as at the start of his Villa career, where it was slowly from Unai Emery. I think it's going to be the same case with Ian Maatsen. We've got a world class left back in Luca Dean. Obviously, Maatsen is world class and is going to get games, but it'll just be slowly integrate him, make sure he's confident coming into the system, knows what he's doing. But long term, I'll be interested to see how Tyrone Mings recovers from 14 months out and the injuries had, but undoubted leader. And, for us, for what he's done for the club in the past, like you said, I think Villa fans will just be really excited. I think you'll start seeing Kamara and Mings making the bench before the end of the year, but probably with not a lot of minutes. But I agree with you. Probably in the new year, you'll start seeing them integrated. What about you, mate? What do you think about the defence? Where are you at?
I'm thinking that at the moment it would stay as it is. To be all honest, I feel like Tyrone Mings will be able to contribute when he comes back, but he's got to earn that right again, and he's not going to be able to just walk in the team. And the person that's playing in his position, who's doing really, really well, is Pau Torres. And kind of really hard to get rid of Pau Torres based on the way that he's been performing of late. I mean, when Pau Torres came, I heard that he wasn't a very quick defender, and I heard that he wasn't very good in the air. But he was a good defender. I think he's done pretty much. He's not the quickest of all defenders, but he doesn't need to be if he's always in the right position. And a lot of the time, he's in the right position. So it's going to be difficult. I think it will come down to horses for courses situation to do with Tyrone Mings, Pau Torres. I'd imagine they can play together, but Pau Torres likes to play on the left, and Tyrone Mings is better on the left. And it's pretty difficult to get rid of Ezri Konsa at the moment. You probably need to. We probably actually need to start looking in the future for the sort of centre back, right-footed centre back, actually, to compete with Konsa on that side, because I feel like we look disjointed. The guys are doing a great job, don't get me wrong, but I do feel like we look disjointed sometimes at centre back. especially with players who are attacking from the left side coming in and going out again. Like Carlos was in trouble the other day because of being a left footer playing on that side. I felt like he caused himself a bit of grief against when played Ipswich against Dilap.
Yep.
So yeah, I probably think that's somewhere where we can really look at, to be honest. So just before we move on to the final topic, if you are watching the podcast on YouTube or you listen to us on Apple and Spotify, please smash that like button, subscribe and share and tell your friends if you're liking the content. We always look forward to having some of your feedback, so please continue to do that. I want to say a big thank you to all of those of you who've been DMing and asking us when the next podcast is. Apologise for the delay, but we are back. So yeah, please, if you can like, subscribe and smash that like button, it really helps the channel. On to the final topic. Ryno, new contract.
Yes.
Not breaking news because it's been broken already, but we should have had the news first because we're in Australia and we have that extra day. But the big man, the Medellin master, John Duran, signs a brand new contract with Aston Villa. What are your initial thoughts?
Shock. Monster extension 2030 signed until, and sort of came out the blue for me. Like, we've covered it, extensively on the podcast, through the preseason. Obviously, the antics of John Duran. Obviously, now starting the season in red hot form. I think he's 10 appearances, 6 goals. I was reading earlier across all competitions. So he's a form striker, and obviously was in demand. West Ham, Chelsea were into him over the summer. But yeah, just shock for me. He came out of nowhere. Yeah,
and I think they said 40 clubs is what they were talking about.
40. Jesus. And do you know what I mean, though? Like, and we sort of had a bit of a chat going on in our WhatsApp group, and Spud, made a really good point. It's really smart business by Villa protecting their assets, and is there a buyout clause in there? Probably. I think they've probably got something in there, but you can guarantee it'd be massive dollars now, though, wouldn't it? Yeah. And even a transfer fee now, if you've got a big contract like that and the form he's hit in, like he's just put 20 million on top of what they were looking for in the summer, I would say. And, what is he, 2021? So, young prospect like that, scoring goals the way he is on the big stage, like you say, that goal against Bayern Munich. I don't know, big shock for me, mate. What was your thoughts?
I mean, we're talking about an extra 50 million per boot. So, great business, great business by the club, if you're asking me. Do you know something about John Duran? And I know we had this issue with him in the summer, but he gets me off my feet. When he comes on, you just don't know what's going to happen with him. You don't know, like, whether he's going to elbow someone and get sent off, or he's going to throw in some weird challenge, or he's going to score a world-class goal. And it was nice for him to score a tap-in recently as well, because every time I see him score, they're not just tap-ins, they are great headers and outside the box smacking goals in the top corners and stuff, like just unbelievable. And he's just exciting to watch. He's young, he's raw, he's hungry, he just wants to play football, and I'm all for that. Like, if you're going to contribute to the club and contribute to our team in this way, I'm all about it. I'm all about it because people and defenders from other clubs don't know what you're going to be doing. They will genuinely not know what he's going to do next.
I don't think he knows what he's going to do next, does he?
No,
I think
no, who cares? Like, he just gets me off my feet.
And for me as well, I agree. I think the last player like that for me, in recent years is probably Christian Benteke. Like, where he could pull the rabbit out of a hat, score any type of goal, long range headers, overhead kicks. And you wouldn't really know what he's going to do next. And same thing, like bums off seats was near, and just like you wouldn't know what you're going to get. And I just love the physicality he brings as well. Like, you can see teams, 70, 80 minutes whenever he comes on. And you just imagine the centre-backs on the opposite team. They're just looking, going, we've just been run ragged for 70 minutes by Ollie Watkins. Now we've got to deal with Duran. He'd be quite chirpy, I could imagine, as well. And obviously very physical.
Somebody's summed it up recently, and I don't know where I heard it. I don't know if I heard it or read it, but someone says, Ollie will run for 60 minutes and make all those defenders tired. John Duran just has to come on and crack a worldie and then game over, just come on and finish the game. You have starters and finishers these days. But he is an exciting player. He's a great prospect for us. I think the world is his oyster, really. He can go and do anything he wants to if he sets his mind to it. I think he's got the best coach in Unai Emery at the moment, who is renowned for coaching players for them to be the best they can be. And he can be the best he can be at Aston Villa. And, sometimes the grass isn't always greener. You think that you've outgrown the football club, but then you go to another football club and your career isn't quite the same. And I felt like that happened for Benteke. I think when Benteke left Aston Villa, we loved him at Aston Villa. We, singing his name, people singing on the train, singing the songs about Christian Benteke on the trains and everything. We loved him there, and he could do no wrong. And of course, the club was in trouble around those times, and he didn't want to be, I suppose, didn't want to, I hate to say it, but get relegated with the club and all these sorts of things. But he went on to play for Liverpool, I think. He left to go to Liverpool.
Yep.
And then Crystal Palace after that.
Yeah.
And the goals weren't there, were they?
Nah, never really hit the heights, did he, when he left Villa? What he was doing at Villa, and
still love Christian Benteke. I still love him. Just saying, still love Christian Benteke.
Agree. And he was playing in a Villa team, under Paul Lambert. There, he plays best football, and we didn't have a lot around him. That was, the start of the decline, wasn't it? Obviously, under Lambert, we'd sold a lot of players: Ashley Young, Stuart Downey, Gareth Barry, James Milner. All the top stars had already left. And Benteke was still able to sort of bang in. The amount of goals he did was incredible. And we are in a blessed position now because, you think about the goals Duran is scoring now off the bench. So he's got 10 appearances, 6 goals. You look at Ollie Watkins, he's coming off one of his best seasons last season. Slow start this year, but he's starting to hit the goal trail again. To have 2 strikers of that quality in our squad is just, we're lucky because we haven't had that for a long time. That sort of depth in that position, and those two are going to push each other. And I am looking forward to seeing them play together as well, and sort of changing the formation up a little bit to accommodate them both. That's going to be interesting going forwards.
I think it's going to be interesting as well. I do have a concern on how much they play together, though. Just in terms of Watkins and John Duran, and only because if any of them get injured, who do we have on the bench to come on if we need to? And God forbid, if they both get injured, what do we do? What happens there? And so while the idea of them playing together is a really good one for them to build a relationship, it will help us get a lot of goals and be an attacking force. I'm slightly in the back of my mind, I'd be concerned, all right, well, how much do they play together? Because if one of them gets injured, then we're going to rely on the other one. We don't know how long that injury will be, and we don't really have anyone. I'm just thinking, we don't, do we? We don't really have a recognised striker on the bench.
Not really.
If any of those get injured.
I think for me, I know Morgan Rogers, when he was at Borough, played a little bit of time up top. And I sort of see him in that Ollie Watkins similar mould, where he's, big, powerful runner. I definitely think he could do a job as an Ollie Watkins replacement. Maybe not quite as effective, but then obviously you lose that run and drive from, just behind the strikers there. But I do see Morgan Rogers in future, if we needed to fill in up front, I think he could do a brilliant job there. But you're right, it'd be interesting to see how those two fit together, because strikers, John Duran being young, has obviously got quite a bit of ego as well, hasn't he? And as a striker, you've got to have confidence and a bit of that, haven't you? And you see Ollie Watkins when he gets subbed off, how annoyed he is at coming off. So I'd be interested to see how they share that limelight and that two up top. But it's good problems to have, though, isn't it?
Brilliant problems to have. And I still think we're having a great season. We're looking good in the league table. We're still in cup competitions. Undefeated in the Champions League at the moment, if you don't mind me saying so. Come on. So excited. Hey, I think we've been just doing I think it's like the best time I've ever watched Aston Villa.
Yeah.
This is like, and you know, when I first started supporting Aston Villa, I supported them because of the way that people like Tony Daly were playing. You know, the Daly and Atkinsons of this world, the Andy Townsends of this world, all that sort of stuff. But I'm watching the way that we play now, and it's just a pleasure to watch us play the way we do. We sometimes control matches and sometimes we don't, but we have a style and we know what we're doing, and we look like we know what we're doing. Just earlier you mentioned that like to see more crosses and stuff, and I think sometimes I'd like to see the same. Just, you know, if you've got some space on the wing, cross the ball in, get the ball in the box, and let's have a go. Because if we keep passing in and around, to give the team time to set up, and we're just passing around and around, but that's our style. I can't complain about it. I love it. But I wish we would just take the initiative sometimes. All right then, Ryno. So I think that about wraps it up for what we're going to talk about today. But we will be back, and hopefully we'll have Spud, the hostess with the mostest, back to take the reins again. It'll be probably when he watches this, kicking himself like, oh my God, what's he doing? But thank you for putting up with me hosting us today. Ryno, anything you want to add just before we wrap up today?
Yeah, I just want to say, just going back to the Bayern game quickly, is really poignant. I sort of missed this earlier, but a poignant win. Obviously, losing one of our 1982 European Cup winning heroes, Gary Shaw, a couple of weeks before, and obviously winning the European Cup against Bayern in '82. And just to have just the way Villa Park was rocking, and just a really poignant win, a really nice way to sort of send off Gary Shaw.
Yeah. All tender in the sky.
Yep.
Where can we find you, Ryno? I know that for YouTube they can see your Twitter handle there. Where can they find you for those who are listening on Spotify and on Apple?
So you can get me on Twitter at Ryno_Watkins, and obviously you can get our Villa Pride Down Under podcast page on Facebook and on Twitter as well. I am on Instagram. It's at Ryno_Watkins3, and also floating around on Facebook. And just hit us up if there's any questions or any topics you'd like to discuss. And hit the like and subscribe, like Tes said earlier.
Yeah, so the like, subscribe is really important for us to grow as a channel for out here in Australia. You can find me, for those who are listening, on Apple and Spotify at Cuban_Night, KNIGHT. Also, just for those who are Australian supporters in Australia, what we've decided to do coming up very, very soon, and we'll let you know via social media, is that we're going to start trying to get some of our podcasts live so that we can start interacting with you. So please get in touch with us, send us questions so that we can get back to you. And we really want to engage with you, and we'll let you know via social media when we decide to do our very first live podcast. And of course, we're going to wait until we have Spud back as well to do that. You can find us on Twitter or X at Pride Down Under, and on Instagram at Villa Pride Down Under, if you want to get in touch with us. Other than that, I guess the last thing to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.